I love it. I'll sit back here a little more so I can see all of you. So happy Hanamatsuri to everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's very comforting to be with so many friends and family in person. So I miss you all. Plus, it's been a long time since we've made finger gel, so it's been a good thing. I'll just detour off script a little bit to reiterate what Gail had to say about chanting together. Chanting on Zoom just is not quite the same, right? And so to be able to be together, to hear our voices together and feel the resonance and the vibrations is very meaningful. For those of you who maybe are newer to the tradition, we're chanting in a sort of a stylized Japanese. It's not like native. I don't really understand Japanese, and native Japanese speakers, when they read the chanting, don't really understand it as well. So it's not an intellectual exercise. Us Westerners, when we chant something, why don't we chant it in English? Well, it's a totally different experience. When you chant something in English, you start thinking about it, and it makes it more of a brain exercise rather than a heart exercise. And so to be together and hear our voices together in oneness is very meaningful. And as Gail says, it's very emotional for those of us who have not had that experience for quite a while. So thank you also to the Dharma School group. Those pictures were awesome. Those Kiko pictures. Those pictures, they were pretty nice pictures. No, that Max is holding out. Oh, somebody. They're very nice pictures. So it's very exciting to hear that the Twin Cities Sangha is growing. It's wonderful to hear that the Dharma resonates with more and more people. And when you think of the Sangha, Sangha is really the community of followers. And in Jodo Shinshu, it's the term is Ondobo Ondogyo, which is fellow travelers. So we're all equals on the same path. So to me, I think of the Sangha kind of as a big tent. And it's supported by the central pole, and that's the Dharma that unifies us. And so this tent will welcome people of any background to foster compassion and equality, and allows people of various interests to gather, like all of us here today. So with the Dharma at its core, we can go beyond any differences and treat everyone under this tent as spiritual family. So the tent really is the embrace of Amida Buddha, the embodiment of infinite wisdom and compassion, who never abandons really any of us, and to allow us to be our true, authentic selves. So today is Hanamatsuri, as it's been said repeatedly here today, and I'd like to give you some of my reflections on the Hanamatsuri celebration and what it means to me. So I'd like to start with a reading from the chapter on practice in Shinran Shonin's work, the Kyogyo Shinsho. So please place your palms together in Gasho as I read this passage. Rare is it to obtain human life, and difficult to encounter a Buddha's appearance in the world. Hard is it to attain the wisdom of entrusting. Should you meet with and hear this teaching, pursue it with diligence. Even when the world is filled with a great fire, pass through it and seek to hear the Dharma. Then you will unfailingly become a world-honored one, and free all beings from birth, aging, and death. Namo Amida Butsu. The line that strikes me, especially lately with so many world events, is that even when the world is filled with a great fire, and it just seems like that's a recurring theme. And for me, the Dharma resonates and gives me comfort and understanding, and it expands my view to help me live in this world. So Hanamatsuri means flower festival, and it's the birthday celebration of Siddhartha Gautama, who becomes Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha. So this happened, as we heard in the story, over 2,500 years ago. So the Buddha would be over 2,500 years old. So with this celebration, we welcome him into our own lives. So I think many of you have heard the Hanamatsuri story repeated many times. If those of you who have had Reverend Ron Dharma talks, and when he would give this Hanamatsuri story, I'd sit in the back and go, I've heard it this many times. But I'd like to talk about some of the symbolism that you see today, since this altar arrangement is very different from what is the usual. So many of the rituals that are observed during Hanamatsuri are based on the legends we're told that happened at the time of Prince Siddhartha's birth. And as the story goes, as you heard in the Dharma, the story that Dharma students, the students told, it was common in the day where Queen Maya was returning to her family home to give birth to her baby. So on their way home, her entourage, she had people, the queen wanted to rest. So when they came upon the Lumbini's garden, that's where Siddhartha was born. So they rested there. So we were told in this story that she picked a leaf from a tree and had a painless birth while standing. So obviously, an unrealistic story told from a male perspective, right? So the Hanamido, or altar of bright flowers that you see, provides the setting for a beautiful Lumbini garden where he was born. And it's said that with his birth, flowers bloomed and all the celestial birds and heavenly beings sang in celebration of his birth. So that's represented by all of us singing when we sing the Gathas. So it rained a sweet rain bathing the Buddha, so we pour sweet tea over the statue of the Buddha called Kambutsu. And we'll all have an opportunity to do that at the end. So I remember being told when I was young, the proper way to pour the tea was over the Buddha's shoulder, not on his head. And you do that out of respect for the Buddha, but I still pour it over his head. It's okay. So I think one of the best parts of this story of his birth is that the new born baby immediately got up and walked 7 steps. So he raised one hand pointing to the sky and one hand pointing to the ground and said, "In the heavens above and on earth below, I alone will become the honored one." So when he walked the 7 steps, it symbolized going beyond or transcending the 6 realms of samsara, or a human life of awakening, into awakening. So his declaration at first might seem or sound conceited to our more Western modern minds, but like me, you're thinking, who does he think he is to make this declaration? But one way I think we can think of it is how we think about our own births, or the birth of our children. So when we're born, we might not walk 7 steps, but we all make our own personal statements by crying out as loudly as we can. So it's our own way of saying, "I'm here." So this story can sound like a fairy tale, and whether it's factually true or not is not really the important part. So after, Kyle's here, so I have to talk about him, of course. So after our son Kyle was born, I thought of this story a little bit differently. So for all you parents, do you remember how you felt when your child was born? Would you describe it as a feeling of indescribable joy? And I can remember the day that Kyle was born and the emotions I felt, and I realized more clearly then that the joy of birth is without bounds. It is a timeless feeling and filled with life, and especially with the difficulty we had of even thinking we could have a baby, I appreciate it as the rare event that it was. Like the opening passage I read, it says, "Difficult is it to obtain human life." So one thing I think that's most often neglected is the story of Queen Maya, the Buddha's mother. The queen and king had difficulty conceiving. In the stories that I read, they had difficulty for 20 years. So I can relate to the heartbreak and suffering she must have gone through with her difficulties of becoming pregnant. That she's the one who gave the Buddha life through her body, realizing that motherhood demands breaking through limitations. And I think that might be why they named him Siddhartha, meaning every wish fulfilled. Sadly, she died shortly after childbirth, and with the ultimate sacrifice of her life, the Buddha was able to be born. So to me, Hanamatsuri is really the celebration of every birth and the value of all life. So why do we celebrate birthdays? Well, first of all, just another thing. I have to comment on Lillian, who just stepped away, which is fine. Abby, Lillian can stay here, of course. Lillian, none of you can claim this, but Lillian has attended every single Twin Cities service of her entire life. In person and also online, which is the best part. So she can run around all she wants. So why do we celebrate birthdays? And why is it important that we get together for birthdays? So I know what you're thinking. I know what Kyle's thinking. It's to get gifts. But really it's an opportunity to be together with our family and friends. It's a chance to honor and show our appreciation to the individual for what they bring to each of us and really to the world. And for the person celebrating, an opportunity to express their gratitude to those around them and to life itself. is for all of us to recognize that the joy of birth is rare and a wonderful gift. So for our own birthday, it is a celebration of yet another year of our life that comes from the understanding that without all of you, I would not be here today, and that is gratitude. So as we celebrate the birth of the Buddha on Hanamatsu, instead of being caught up maybe in the mystical nature of the story of his birth, we should realize the significance in nature and the significance or reason behind Shakyamuni Buddha being born, so that we could encounter the teaching of the Buddha and truly celebrate all life. So if we think about the definition or meaning of the name Amida, it means infinite life and unending compassion. So that doesn't mean we live forever, but it means all lives are important, and the Buddha's compassion is for everyone and never ceases, no matter what they bring. So in the larger sutra, which is one of the 3 Pure Land Sutras that Shinran points to for our tradition, it explains the reason for the Buddha's appearance in the world was to explain Amida's vow through this sutra. And so Shinran quotes from the larger sutra in the hymns of the Pure Land, where he says, "The fundamental intent for which the Buddha appeared in the world was to reveal the truth and reality of the primal vow. He taught that to encounter or behold a Buddha is as rare as the blossoming of an udambara." So udambara is a tree that rarely blossoms. But without the birth of Shakyamuni Buddha, we would not be able to encounter the primal vow of Amida. So as we reflect on the causes and conditions that made it possible for us to gather today, it's really a remarkable thing to consider. Gail has shared the story of the Twin Cities Buddhist Sangha and how remarkable it was that we exist today through so much hardship endured by our ancestors. And these ancestors are not just our blood relatives, although many of them are, but are people who laid the foundation for us to encounter Shinran's teachings. It's amazing to think that after 2,500 years and several continents of migration, that we can be together at Shirley's Place. So when we celebrate the birth of the Buddha on Hanamatsu, it is expressing our gratitude for what the Buddha brought to the world and for the opportunity for us to encounter the teachings. It's recognizing the countless lives carrying the Dharma and handing it off to you and I. So as we celebrate the Buddha's birthday, we recognize and appreciate the rarity of birth. The joy of birth is a wonderful gift, and is a reminder for us to appreciate what we have been given and for the sanctity of all life. So before I close, I just want to take a moment to express my gratitude to the Twin Cities Sangha. And many of you know the history of the Sangha, but many of you may not. So it's important to understand the causes and conditions, some of which we know and many that we don't know. What made it possible for our group to flourish in its 77 years of existence. This is just amazing to think that it's been that long. My parents and grandparents were early members of the Sangha. And as I said, when we think of the hardship that our ancestors endured who started the Sangha after being incarcerated by the government for reasons of discrimination, they started with humble beginnings to spread the teachings. They valued the importance of having this spirituality present in their lives so greatly that they sacrificed to establish our Sangha, and it continues and endures today thanks to them. So when we think of the Dharma as the center pole of the support of this tent, they made sure that this big tent was available for all of us. We're all assured a space beneath and protected by the tent. So by the embrace of the dynamic wisdom and never-ending compassion embodied by Amida Buddha, we can be our true selves. So please join me in Gassho as I reread the passage from the Kyogo Shinsho in closing. Rare is it to obtain human life, and difficult to encounter a Buddha's appearance in the world. Hard is it to attain the wisdom of entrusting. Should you meet with and hear this teaching, pursue it with diligence. Even when the world is filled with a great fire, pass through it and seek to hear the Dharma. Then you will unfailingly become a world-honored one, and free all beings from birth, aging, and death. Namo Amida Butsu.
Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Thank you very much.